Let's do it.
Okay, we're going live in a few seconds. Thank you everyone for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, Shiatsu brothers, sisters, and lovers. Happy Friday. And I'm so excited because we have another great guest. Every Friday I have a great guest. It's never not great. It's always great every Friday. And we have a great guest that I've been looking forward to having on my show, Kindy Kaur from the UK. Hello, Kindy.
Hi, thanks for inviting me, Mihail.
I'm honored to have you here. Yeah, and I love your background.
Well, it's psychedelic. This is my clinic room. It's it's bright.
Beautiful. Yes, it's beautiful. And for those on our Facebook group, if you can like it, heart it, and tell us where you're from, so people get the awareness that we are going live, and it just helps with Facebook how do you say that word? Algorithm. No, forget it.
Algorithm.
Algorithm. Thank you. Well, Kindy, like everybody on the show, we're always interested to know how your journey started with Shiatsu therapy, and I'm sure it's interesting because we all have had interesting journeys to discover Shiatsu. So we look forward to hearing how it all began for you and how you came across this path.
Yeah, well, I think from a very early age, I was interested in health, in the body, in science. And so I originally, after school, went on to train as a biologist. My degree was in biology, applied biology, and I specialized in molecular biology. So when I discovered Shiatsu, I was actually working as a research scientist at the University of Warwick in the UK. And at that time, I was working in the biotechnology department. And one of my colleagues, he was working there, but he was also training to be a Shiatsu practitioner. So I became his case study. So that was my original introduction to Shiatsu as a receiver. And at that time, I loved it. I loved what it did for my body, my mental health, but I didn't really consider that I was going to train in it at all. And then I moved to Nottingham for a job, working in the biotech industry, still as a molecular biologist. And it was around that time, I was working as a scientist, and for many years, it was great. It was innovative. What we were doing was fantastic. And after some years, I suppose as I started moving up through the organization and it became much more corporate, I just found that it didn't really fit with me. I was becoming disillusioned by the organization, not so much by science, but by the organization. I wanted to work with people more. At the same time, I was having some health crises as well. This is what often happens when you're unhappy. I had health crises. And also around that time, in that time, coming up to that time, I had a crisis in my personal life as well. So it was like a turning point. It was like, which is often the case, we get positioned, life positions us to find what we need. And I was searching for something. And I met a friend who introduced me to another friend who gave me a flyer for a Shiatsu workshop. And so I remembered Shiatsu. I remembered I had received Shiatsu. And as it was, I didn't go to this workshop. I contacted the course facilitator, Linda Sharples, who was my first Shiatsu teacher in Nottingham. And I just signed up for the course. I didn't even go to the introductory workshop. At some level, I just knew that I needed to do this. I didn't know why. So I did my first year of Shiatsu training in Nottingham with Linda Sharples. And then I continued to do my second year and third year training with the British School of Shiatsu. This was the British School of Shiatsu in London. And ended up graduating, but it was during that third year where I decided, you know, my final year, I was moving up through the organization. By now, you know, I'm no longer working in the laboratories. I'd moved into the marketing and the business development. I was traveling the world, and it seemed like a glamorous lifestyle. But I just wasn't enjoying it. I was becoming more ill. So I decided I just had to make a decision at that point, and I left my job. And people thought I was mad. I was in my third year of training. I hadn't set up my clinic. I'd just been working with you know, other students and a few people, case studies. But you know, there comes a point where the discomfort of staying in a situation that you're uncomfortable in becomes greater than the discomfort of change and uncertainty.
Yes.
So that was my route to it. And as I was, you know, as I was doing my training, I just remembered that it just made sense to me. It was like coming home to myself.
Mm.
It was like, you know, I was in a place of crisis. I felt like I'd fallen apart. I was falling apart. And the only thing that was consistent in my life at that time was my Shiatsu training. And it felt like the parts of me, the different parts of me were being put back together again, but in a slightly different way.
Rearranged.
Rearranged, absolutely. And so yeah, so that was me coming home to myself, really. And in that third year, I just made the decision to set up my practice. And I never really looked back. But having said that, you know, people thought I was mad. You know, I didn't have a job to go to. My parents thought I was completely bonkers. You know, educated me to degree level. I've had a good job, and what you're doing, leaving science to do this. What is this Shiatsu anyway? You know, and
yes. I could relate. Yes.
I think, yeah, a lot of us have been through that, where, you know, people around us haven't really understood, but there's been a calling there. But it was a leap of faith. And in that third year, I knew I had to get a job, or I had to make a go of things. And I wrote on a piece of paper my ideal job. It didn't have a title, it just had a job description, what was important to me, the kind of people I wanted to work with, the kind of thing that I wanted to do. And my original teacher in Nottingham approached me, and she said, "Kindy, I'm going to give up running the school in Nottingham. I'd like you to take over."
Wow.
And I remember saying, "Well, no, why would I want to do that? That's not on my radar. I don't want to run a Shiatsu school. I'll run my Shiatsu clinic, but I need a job alongside it, and I'll do the two together," not believing that I could earn a living from Shiatsu alone. So I didn't. Then a few months later, she approached me again and said, "Kindy, I would really like you to take this over." And I remember going back to my little piece of paper that I'd written, and I looked at it, and I thought, this is exactly what I'd been asking for, but I didn't have the title of run a Shiatsu school. And sometimes, you know, what we're looking for is already there, but in a different form, you know, in a form that we're not looking for.
Yes.
So that's how I came to that.
That's
And
amazing.
you know, my route continued to be unconventional from then, because I took over running the school, but while I was still in my third year of studies.
Wow.
And I had this vision, this linear vision, that you have to train, then you have to graduate, then you have to do a teacher training, then you have to have years of experience, and then you can teach. But as it was, on the Friday, I took my final exams. On the Saturday, my first training was running, but I wasn't teaching it. You know, I was very blessed to have many very great teachers around me. So I called them in to do the teaching. And while they taught for me, I apprenticed them. So that was, you know, that just really worked. So it was more of an apprenticeship. And I also did a teacher training at the British School of Shiatsu as well. So I did both together until I had enough experience to then start to teach myself.
Wow, what a blessing for your teacher to see that in you, right? And to bring that out at such a young stage of your evolution. Obviously, she saw things in you that you couldn't see at the time, and
I was very grateful, yeah, and I couldn't see it at the time at all.
yeah, it's amazing. It reminds me of the story that Mike Mandel, another guest, shared with me. Very similar story between his teacher and him, and so yeah, it's amazing that the lineage is passing forward when the teacher recognizes in a student. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
this is the person to pass the torch to. Yeah, amazing. Uh, how was it running the program? What did you learn from teaching? Yeah, well, because we always learning, even though we have the teacher, we're learning from our students all the time.
Yeah, from running the school and from teaching now as well. I learned, well, firstly, I learned the basics of, how to run a school and, just the practicalities. I realized that when I was employed, there was an IT department doing the IT, and there was a finance department doing the finance, and suddenly I had to learn how to do all of this. So that was a very steep learning curve. From my students, I learned much around boundaries, around ethics, around humility, also around the difference between service and sacrifice. That there's a fine line.
Yes.
I could very easily exhaust myself from running the school or from being in service. It's the same with my clinic now. That there's a fine line between service and sacrifice.
Beautifully
And
said.
that's constantly, I'm constantly working with that.
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, I can't imagine that learning curve. Again, going from a corporate world where like you mentioned, you have all those departments taking care of things, and now you're really an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it was.
Doing 10 jobs, 10 departments with one person. It's a huge learning curve, and I'm sure it served you as you moved along.
Yeah, definitely.
Therapist
Well, I ended up passing the school on to somebody else when I became a mother. And I think, what had happened was that I changed when I became a mother. There's something in me shifted. And I realized that I could either parent the school or I could parent my children, and I had to make a choice there. So I obviously chose to parent my children. But it was a turning point. That was another turning point in my life. After I'd run the school for several years and became a mother myself, I took some time out. And when I came back, I realized I'd changed, and it was no longer satisfying me. It was no longer feeling fulfilling. My Shiatsu practice wasn't feeling fulfilling. My teaching wasn't. And I actually very nearly gave up Shiatsu completely. I was really questioning whether Shiatsu was the right path for me at that point. And I also had been suffering from postnatal depression as well. In hindsight, I realize, but it was another kind of a breaking down of the status quo. And I think, pregnancy, childbirth is one of those big turning points in life where, this portal opens. Birth is one of them. Pregnancy, childbirth is another. Menopause is another. Death is another. And I'd come to another one of those turning points in life. And I actually did retrain as a school's business manager. I was getting ready to leave Shiatsu altogether. And I qualified, and I'd get to an interview situation, and it'd be me and one other person. And each time I realized that what I was saying in the interviews was, no, I don't want to do that. And no, I can't be that flexible. And no, I don't want to work those hours. And I realized that actually I already had in my Shiatsu, what I'd built up in my Shiatsu life, everything that I needed, everything I wanted. And around that time, Saul Goodman was coming to the UK to teach. And I hadn't worked with Saul before, but he had an influence in the British School of Shiatsu very early on. He was one of the founders. So his teachings had permeated through the BSS, which was my lineage. And I hadn't worked with him, but I went and did a course with him when he came back to the UK. And I remember it was the Central Channel Release course. That was the first training I did with him. And I woke up. It was like the light went on. It was like I just became plugged back into my life again, my authentic life. And I can't describe it in any other way. And I was excited, I was inspired again, and it reminded me of why I'd been interested in Shiatsu in the first place, you know, what had drawn me to Shiatsu in the first place, that excitement, that inspiration, that innovation, the intellect. It just made sense. And it was like, I can only describe it like an upgrade, like I'd received an upgrade.
Yes.
Like I received an upgrade in my software, in my operating system. Like everything had changed. It's the only way I can describe it.
Mm.
And I remember on that course, that first course I did, I didn't understand anything about this. It at some level it made sense, but it took me a long time to integrate the information. It was all very new to me. And while I was on the course, this was a 6-day, very intense course, I had these dreadful headaches that would come up and nausea that was coming up. And at some level, I knew I wasn't ill, but there were all these symptoms coming up. And we were working on the meninges. The central channel works on the meninges surrounding the brain and the spine, releasing kind of very deep patterns of stress, patterns of trauma. And it was only after the course, so I lasted the 6 days. Afterwards, I realized that what was happening was that I had meningitis when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
And I had quite a bad experience with meningitis, but I had antibiotics. And so the antibiotics had saved my life. But at some level, those antibiotics had compressed the energetics, the information of this meningitis into my system. And on this course, that's what was being released. And I had had a history of migraines ever since. After doing this course, those migraines just alleviated. And so there was this deep trauma that was being released. So yeah, that was my path to Shintai. That was my first
Shintai, yeah, amazing introduction, you know. And we had Saul Goodman as a guest. He is a brilliant, brilliant man. Very interesting, and I'm gonna have him back again. But can you take us through the principles of Shintai, if you can? I know there's a lot to talk about. But...
Okay, if I was going to, I'm going to try to do this in a nutshell.
Yes.
But if I was going to use 3 words that, for me, I can only speak about my experience of Shintai. If I was going to use 3 words, they would be motion, alignment, and resonance. Those 3 words encapsulate the principles of Shintai to me. So if you use that as your imagery, you know, it's a very different imagery to other styles of Shiatsu that I've experienced. So the motion, if you think of a baby, when a baby's born, it's very vibrant. The whole body moves. The whole body moves from the hara. The shoulders move when it breathes. The hips move. The spine moves when it breathes. And as we get older, we start to lose some of that motion, some of that breath, some of that resonance. And a baby, when it makes a noise, when it cries, it is so resonant. Yeah, it can scream the house down. It's this tiny little being, but it's because it's this resonant being. And in its most simple form, what we're looking at in terms of the motion is, when I look at the body, we're looking at where is there motion, where is there no motion? It's as simple as that in its most simple forms. So what tools do I have to bring motion back to the areas where there is no motion? Where's their vitality? Where is there no vitality? Where's their resonance? Where's there no resonance? So that is the most basic form of diagnosis that we're using. It's motion is life. Where's their life? Where is there no life? And in terms of alignment, we're looking at, it might be alignment, the physical alignment, so alignment of the spine, the vertebra, the pelvis, alignment of the organs within the spaces in the body, alignment of the energy body with the physical body, alignment with the true self.
Yes.
Yeah. And then in terms of resonance, how's the body resonating? What is its frequency? How can I bring alignment and resonance back to the body? And so I think of it like when I'm treating somebody, the main influences from Saul was what was game changing for me was that I started to see the body as resonance, as a space of resonance. So rather than just thinking of it as meridians or organs, I saw it as a space of resonance, so that we're working with a resonant body, resonance in the room, resonance around the body. So that's what we're working with. And then coming back to the motion, we work with what we call 3 phases of motion, 3 phases of resonance. And they're very subtle motions that we're looking for, which give you an indication of how the body is resonating, and therefore which techniques would be most appropriate to use with that person at that phase of their treatment, at that phase within the treatment. So it's a very creative yet structured approach.
Can you give us an example of that? Like
so there's
those 3 phases. That's very interesting.
So yeah, so when somebody first lies down on the futon, you'll see that their body will generally just move up and down. Yeah, their breathing will just be up and down, and we call that non-wave or phase 1. And at that stage, you'd be using more structural techniques, perhaps more hands-on, more regular Shiatsu type of touch techniques. As they move into a higher phase of resonance. So what we're doing is we're using our range of tools to increase the resonance, increase the space, increase the motion in the body. And as they're resonating at high frequencies, it might be that the spine starts to elongate, the ribs start to breathe more laterally. You might start to see a bit of a tilt in the pelvis. And then at the highest phase of resonance, it might be that you start to see the hips start to move about. Remember the baby that we came to, a baby's hips move with the breath, the shoulders move with the breath, the spine has this wave to it. So depending on which phase of resonance it's moving in, it gives us a range. We have a range of ways of working with different frequencies. So I see the body as a range of frequencies. So the most dense being the physical level, the bone level. So it might be that we're using structural alignment techniques, or we might work with the meridians and the fascia, and of course the meridians and the fascia are related. We might work with the meninges, so which is the deep fascia surrounding the brain and the spinal cord, to release some of those deeper patterns of stress. We might be working with chakras, so that's getting more higher frequency, or working with the energy body, and we choose which mode to work with according to the resonance in the body, and will shift between stages. So it's very structured, but it's it's very creative, but there's a structure and there's a philosophy underlying it. You know, I often call the jazz of bodywork. It's like, you know, when you hear someone playing jazz, and especially what I call ants in your pants jazz, you know, that jazz that sounds like there's just no structure to it at all. It just sounds, you know, it's improvised. It sounds completely off the roof. But actually, jazz has a structure and concepts underlying it, which gives it the foundation, which allows it to be creative and still sound harmonious.
Beautiful, beautiful metaphor. Yeah, I mean, that experience of releasing the trauma that you had, you know, that must have been profound, and we experience that a lot, you know, with Shiatsu as it is. But that what makes a little bit Shintai unique is working with the brain structure. You know, and there's so much neuroscience right now coming up around the effects and the workings of the brain and the nervous system. Where is that taking you, the path of Shintai? I know you are teaching throughout the world, before COVID, and now online. As you evolve in with Shintai, where is it taking you?
Well, I continued to train with Saul. After that first training I did, I went back and did all the other modules. There's the governing vessel module, the conception vessel module, governing vessel and spine, conception vessel and hara, structural alignment, and then we go into chakras and light body activation. So I've continued to train with Saul and did his teacher training. So I do teach Shintai largely in the UK, and I have been going to Portugal. Nuno, who's here, has been organising my courses in Portugal, and Fernanda's also been on board with those, and we hope to do one there next year. The last couple didn't happen because of the pandemic, so I wasn't able to travel. But so I hope for those to continue, and I'm still teaching in the UK. Online, I've been doing probably more kind of meetup review classes for the existing Shintai community, and I have a small Shintai community here in the UK who have been working with me. So during the pandemic, we were just getting together just to support each other, to do some practice, to do some proprioceptive exercise, which is part of the Shintai program. Just to keep ourselves aligned, keep ourselves connected, keep ourselves resonating, fine-tune our skills. And then over time, that's become review classes. So I'm running at the moment something called Central Channel Journeys, where we're reviewing the work, but continuing to develop ourselves at the same time. And in the autumn, I have a Central Channel course coming up here in Nottingham. So hopefully that will run live in September. And who knows, next year. I'm not even thinking that far ahead now. What I've learned from this year is whatever plans I make, I have to change. So I'm not making any more plans right now.
Got it. I mean, that's what makes also Shintai unique. I find talking about the central channel and the governing vessel, and you know, Soul's explanation of it, how it's almost like an infinity pathway. It's really a one channel that flows as infinity, and you know, we forget about those two channels sometimes in our shiatsu, and how powerful and deep they are. And
well, they're the primal energies. You know, they're the first channels that develop in the embryo at conception. So they come from the sperm and the egg, and those motions that I was talking about, the subtle motions that we're looking at in the body are a combination of the motions of the sperm and the egg. So the sperm has this wave-like motion, yeah, and we see that manifesting. It manifests as governing vessel energy, but it manifests as the spine, and you can see it as the wave in the spine and all its associated components. The egg has the emotion of, it has a spiraling motion, an oscillating motion. And that's the motion. If you think about it, the egg, it's the earth, the earth.
That's right.
Rotates, yeah, it has a spiraling motion. Also the ovum, the egg, and the fallopian tube, as it comes down the fallopian tube, it turns, it has this spiraling, oscillating motion. And so those motions together, so the egg ends up forming the hara, and so the energies of the sperm and the egg, the wave, the spiral, the oscillation, are the motions in the body. So when we're looking at these subtle motions, they're a combination of waves and spirals and oscillations. And so we're working at the most primal level of our energy system. And so, this system of body work, what I love about it is that it's a coherent framework that just fits together really well. It's really consistent, and the whole system works as a standalone body work, but it's also easily integrated into whatever style of shiatsu we're doing. And so even just the basics of learning how to clear the governing vessel, conception vessel channel, which, as you say, is an infinity. We think of them as two channels, governing vessel and conception vessel, but actually they're all part of one flow. When we address the flow of those channels, because they're the parents of all the others, governing vessel is the parent of all the yang meridians, conception vessel is the parent of the yin meridians. When you address the parents, you know what you say, if you want to treat the children, treat the parents.
Yes,
treat the child, treat the parents. If you treat the parents and establish that flow, it makes everything else much easier. The meridians take care of themselves.
Beautiful. I mean, I had just yesterday an experience with someone, that has been, repeatedly traumatized, especially in medical procedure environments. I mean, somehow she repeats the scenario and the situation, and she tried many therapies, and someone recommended her, and she came for first session. Yesterday was the second session, and all I did for about half an hour was just tap into the conception vessel. Right? It was very light. There was no work around the painful areas. It was just, and she actually, some of our patients are extremely sensitive. They can feel everything, especially highly sensitive patients that have experienced many traumas. And she actually said it out loud. I feel like I'm coming back to myself. I feel like I'm coming back to my authentic self. And she had that experience, which was both exciting and painful at the same time. Because when we come back to our authentic self, we realize, wow, how much time was wasted. How much time was wasted on holding this distortions and of our pain. So she was both elated and she was pained. But
it's not always a joyful experience coming back home to ourselves, because it reminds us of all the ways that we've come out of ourselves. Whether it's our conditioning or following a path that wasn't true for us, or following a lifestyle that didn't serve us.
Yes.
It reminds us of all those ways, and we have to confront those.
Yes.
Healing is an awakening. It's not necessarily a joyful process, in my opinion.
It's a very powerful moment, right? It's it's a death and a rebirth, or maybe even leaving oneself, the one that is familiar, right? Yeah, it's a powerful experience just to witness that moment just by gently, stimulating that powerful vessel, right? Forget how powerful it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be touched with respect,
Mm.
remembering the level at which we're working out with people. It's a real privilege and an honor for someone to trust us and to never, forget that humility in what people are actually allowing us to touch when we go to those places.
Oh, well,
I find it very humbling.
that's what makes that's what attracted me to Shiatsu. Also, there is that essence to Shiatsu that is very sacred, and something spiritual. We're not just treating the body; we're interacting with a spirit, right? And it's very sacred. Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole life system that they've created around that.
Yes. Yes.
There's a responsibility there, great responsibility.
It is. It is, and an honor, and so much to learn. In those experiences. Yeah. Let's talk about the new paradigm. So what is the new paradigm for you?
So a paradigm, I think of a paradigm as a way of being. And, I brought this up really as a question, actually. So this new world that's emerging, post-pandemic, we're seeing changes, aren't we? We're seeing shifts. We're seeing that the world needs to change. The climate crisis, there's chronic inequalities in the world. But at the same time, I'm also seeing that there is a shift in consciousness. And I think I was seeing this before the pandemic struck. I think it's just amplified all of that. And I think what I'm also seeing in my clients and my students is that often when they're coming to me, they might be coming with a bad back or a bad shoulder or whatever. But at some level, the people that I'm seeing are questioning the status quo. They're looking for meaning, they're looking for purpose, and they're on a journey.
Mm.
And I feel that Shiatsu has is very well placed to facilitate the changes that are happening right now. Many of the people that I'm seeing are, they're leaders in their own right. I've come to know them as what I call the gentle warriors, both students and clients, and they might not be what they see themselves as warriors or leaders in what you might think of the conventional sense, but they might be parents or teachers or healers or dancers or artists or gardeners or chefs, whatever it is. But every day they're making a difference, but they don't necessarily see that in themselves. And I think what we call leaders is changing, has to change. It's not necessarily the politicians. So I see that Shiatsu is very well placed to facilitate those transformations in those people who are finding their authentic self so that they can go out in the world and do what they're here to do. So I suppose it's more of a question. I don't necessarily have an answer. I just have my own experience and my own, my thoughts around it. My question is, what is the role of Shiatsu in the emerging paradigm? And I think that's something for all of us. And perhaps actually we could put it in the Facebook group as a question, as a post. I'd be really interested to hear, because, we've all been on this journey where we've seen how Shiatsu has impacted on us as individuals. But, in my training, one of the things that really impacted on me when I was a student was how I would see groups change, how as we transformed and changed as individuals and dealt with our own inner conflicts, dealt with our own, Shiatsu moves stagnation, it empowers. As we dealt with that, it reflected out in the group. And so there's a ripple out effect, and how it has a ripple out effect on families, on communities. I was running community sessions where the students would give treatments to people out in the community. So there was that ripple out effect, and they would keep coming back. And they weren't just coming back for the physical benefit. There was a community benefit that was happening. And I really believe that Shiatsu has a place in healing individuals, groups, families, communities, hey, nations perhaps.
Yes. Yes. I mean, there's Elaine Lichty from the UK Society in Scotland. She's hoping to be at the summit that is coming up concerning the health of the planet and the environment, and she's hoping to get a booth there with where some of the delegates can receive Shiatsu. Can you imagine?
Yeah, great.
Shiatsu influencing the future of this planet. I mean, it's so true, and I so believe in what you just said, and see it and experience it like many of us here. And I do believe that Shiatsu is a major place in that evolution of humanity, and we need to shine brighter. And we need to touch more and knock on doors more, and we definitely have something powerful, something that people are searching for.
Well, I think what's been happening over this past year in the Shiatsu community is part of that, in the sense that, after I graduated, I always made a point of, getting out of my BSS bubble, which was a great training, and I had a great, I'm very clear about my lineage of my training, Saul, the BSS, and the teachers behind them. But from those very strong, clear foundations, I think we also have to evolve and adapt. That's the nature of Ki, if things don't adapt and change, then we stagnate. And so I always made a point of making sure that I went to other people's workshops and experienced other styles of Shiatsu. So I've always been very open to that. And there have been times when it can become quite tribal, and that, this style of Shiatsu is better than that style of Shiatsu. And what I've been seeing this last year, and I think the pandemic has helped with this, that as we come online, we've come out of our bubbles, and we're communicating and collaborating more across the airwaves with people that we might not otherwise have come across. And so I think what you're doing, Michael, is fabulous. I think it's a great contribution to that, to the evolution of our art, and possibly wider. I think it's got a really important place to play. I'm working with Carola and Tamsin on the Shiatsu Press.
Yes.
Because they're also, creating this publishing house to give voice to Shiatsu voices that might not otherwise be heard, and that feels very important. And we're seeing so many people, online, creating so many forums where we can come together and share and evolve together, and realize that, in this diversity there is richness.
Yes.
In all our diversity there is richness. And I know that in my own life, I've grown up, I grew up in a Sikh household. My heritage is Sikh, Indian Sikh, and one of the core principles of that, I'm not particularly religious, but I'm very proud of my heritage. One of the core principles is service.
Service, yeah.
So, Shiatsu is my form of service. But yeah, I think it's got a really important part to play.
Huge, and that's such a great initiative by those wonderful women creating the Shiatsu Press. It was so necessary, and again, a platform for Shiatsu therapists, supporting Shiatsu therapists,
That's
and
great.
yeah, and giving voice and support. It's a fantastic initiative. Well, I want to give some time to the people that have joined us, maybe to come into the conversation, people on our Facebook group. So this is a great time to ask a question or add to the conversation. That'll be great. So if you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question here, or go ahead, Alexis, just unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good morning, Kindy. Thank you.
Hi, Alexis.
My question is, and I have difficulty with this too. How do you manage that fine line between sacrifice and service? Do you have anything, techniques that work for you?
It's a constant. I realize that I have to really listen to how I'm feeling, basically. And if I'm becoming depleted, then I'm out of kilter. And so one thing I have to make sure is that I have a regular practice. I think it's really important to have some kind of regular practice that nourishes us, but also continually brings us back into alignment, and so that we're constantly listening to our own messages. When I'm challenged in the sense of, do I want to do this or I want to do this, my mantra to myself is, how do I keep my heart open but my boundaries intact in this situation? And it's a constant flux of open heart but boundaries intact. And so that, comes to things like, how many clients do I see in a week? How many clients can I see and it still be sustainable? What's important to me? How can I have a Shiatsu practice and teach and have a quality of life with my family? Because what's important to me? So it was part of the reason that I gave up running a Shiatsu school and took some time to raise my family before coming back. I have very clear boundaries with my family about when I'm working and when I'm in mother mode. So it's about setting those boundaries up with them as well. I have very clear boundaries with my clients about what is expected about timing and turning up and cancellation policies. So there's a lot about boundaries for me. How about you?
I have a lot to deal with. As you say, I think I need to get back to my focus and having a regular meditation or whatever it is to, ground and center myself. I'm dealing more with my mother and dementia right now, and it's very challenging because I'm, my heart is open, but at the same time, it gets very challenging. But I thank you, because that really helped a lot, just to hear that and help me to kind of harness my energy and keep it where it's manageable. So thank you very much, Mihail and Kindy, for being here today. And you share and you give from the heart. You offer so much. So thank you, and everybody for showing up too. So
Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you, Alexis.
And sometimes also asking for help. It's hard for givers or therapists sometimes to ask for help. So, put your ego aside sometimes and recognize when you need some help or even a kick in the butt. And everybody needs help, at some point. Great question, though.
Yeah.
Any more questions or comments? Raise your hand. I'll help. Maybe Nuno, can you share with us what you learned with working with Kindy? And I'll put you on the spot. Put Portugal on the spot here.
Okay, I wasn't expecting this, but well, okay, it was for me. It was like a quantum leap because I was interested in the Shintai for several years, and I wanted to travel to learn Shintai. Then I met Kindy on the Facebook, and I was asking her when was she teaching again, and she challenged me to organize a course in Portugal. So the opportunity to bring Kindy to my home, uh, to stay with me and to learn from her, from in the first, I think it was 6 days, the first course, it was governing vessel. So it was like learning 24 hours a day, a new system that completely changed my way of working with Shiatsu. I was traditional Shiatsu practitioner. Then this Shintai approach is very creative, like Kindy said, and it completely resonates with me because I'm not I'm not like, oh, how can I say, I'm more I like to be more free on my practice, and working only with meridians and only having to follow the lines of the meridians were very strict. So completely changed the way I work, and in my life it was the amazing changing because it changed all my energy and all my consciousness expanded, and it accidentally evolved for me to begin to teach shiatsu after that. I think it was because of Shintai, especially not just the governing vessel, but working on the Ara in the second course. It was amazing because completely gave me uh, power, personal power that I didn't know that I have.
Beautiful.
It was amazing. Yes, it was great to have Kindy here, because many people are now. I teach a bit of Shintai in my course, and many more people are wanting to go to and to learn with Kindy, because I told them that Kindy sometimes comes to Portugal, so they want to learn more because they are very um, excited by this different approach to shiatsu. So it is great, and it's amazing work.
Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. Nuno. I know I put you on the spot.
Thank you.
Great
Yeah.
to hear that.
Thank you. And we have to remember that, it's been actually been developed by Saul Goodman. I'm purely the messenger of it, but it's changed my life
Of
too.
course, yes. And you are like a channel. You are channeling us all. His work, your own way. Yeah, it's beautiful. I think you are a great teacher. You're a great. How can I say? You are a great channel for to continue this development of Shintai. Yeah, and I hope to meet Soul one day also.
You'll have to go to the States now to meet him,
I
or work
know.
online.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We have maybe time for one more question or comments or adding to this conversation. Anybody? Just raise your hand. No, everybody's okay.
I'd like to add, is there somebody speaking?
No, I'm just.
No, I'd just like to add one more thing. What we get, talking about new paradigms. so there's also new paradigms of Shiatsu emerging, you know, in terms of multidimensional healing. So that, you know, that's something that, you know, people would say to me, you know, you're a scientist, how can you be into energy work as well? For me, there was never any paradox between those. They were just different roadmaps for the same terrain. And now, of course, quantum physics, quantum mechanics is caught up and come to the same conclusion that and everything is energy. And so although we can, and this, you know, completely resonates with it's a part of the Shintai work, that our body, but our whole energetic system is a range of frequencies from the most dense, getting more and more subtle. And so during this pandemic, we're seeing more people doing remote work, multidimensional work. And it's given me the opportunity to develop that during this year. You know, I used to dabble with it, but I never really felt in my integrity doing it before because it was very inconsistent. And so during this year, and working with Saul as well with his light body activation works, really helped me to develop that, and how we can touch physically with the hands, but how we touch with our intention, with our minds. And so I was able to carry on working with some people online who are open to that remotely. And now what I'm finding is that people are having a mixture of both, that the two go what they complement each other. Some people will come for hands-on treatments, and then they'll have a distance treatment, and they both support each other. So, you know, that as an evolution of Shiatsu as well is something that's emerging. I know there's many others. New Energy Work are doing a lot of work on this. And I just wanted to put that out there, that really excites me. We're still working with frequency and resonance, but, you know, in another way.
So it's so true. You know, when we had the lockdown here in the beginning, I pivoted and started doing that with some patients that were willing, and it was an incredible experience just having that live, that immediate feedback too, and then patients feeling the effects, and sometimes they were better than in-person sessions. So that was quite an experience for me too, doing it for about 3 months. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's definitely a new paradigm. Well, we got lots of comments, and Mariana here wants to ask a question. Go ahead, Mariana.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Hi everyone. Hi Kindy.
Hi Mariana.
I'm just very interested about courses and learning, so I like to hear something about that. If you do any course in the UK online or maybe in Nottingham. Yeah, that's all.
I've got a live Central Channel course coming up in September, or that's already pretty booked up. If you're on my mailing list, I will send you. Have you done any Shintai already with the BSS? You have?
Yes, I done the first year. Our year was, you remember it, we done it at the first year.
Yeah.
And finally I finished now.
Great.
the whole, yes. And I really like to, I have quite many clients now interested, so I like to learn now.
Fantastic.
I really feel I need more.
Fantastic.
Revise and knowledge.
Well, if you go to my website, kindykaur.com, and just sign up there, you'll be on my mailing list, and I'll send you information.
We'll put that on our Facebook group too, or your website, Kindy. Thank you, Mariana. I have another
thank you.
question here from Tamzeen. I'm interested in what can Shiatsu give to the community. Can you speak a little more about this? I mean, we did speak a little bit about it. I can.
Yeah, we spoke. Yeah, we were speaking about that earlier in terms of. We were talking about how Shiatsu has it's very well placed to facilitate change and transformation and healing. And you know, we've seen how it impacts on individuals, but I was also talking about how, you know, as we as individuals change and we do our inner work, and Shiatsu, I think, is part of that transformative work, it impacts on groups. We've seen that in our trainings in groups, how, you know, individuals within a group and a group, the whole group dynamic will shift. The impact that will have on families as we bring this new resonance back to our families. And often, you know, if there's conflict, it might amplify the conflict, but, you know, often things, the shadows have to be amplified in terms of in order to resolve them. We've seen the effect that it can have. I believe that, you know, it can have a knock-on effect on communities and possibly nations as well. And I think it's all about resonance. I think it's also about, we were talking about, you know, resonance as a ripple out effect and the shift of consciousness that's happening. So, you know, as Shiatsu can move stuckness, it can fill depletion, it empowers, it facilitates change. I think it's really got a role to play in change in the new paradigm that's emerging. And I think it's up to us to create that new paradigm. You know, what I think the question is, what is our vision? What is our vision for Shiatsu community? What is our vision for us as individuals? What is our vision for our families, for our communities? And it starts with vision, you know, because we know key follows our intention. So I think, you know, Shiatsu's got a role to play there, but I think we've got to be really clear about what it is that we're intending.
Beautifully said. I mean, and owning the part of us that is a teacher too. You know, we're not just therapists, we are teachers, we are guides. We
Students.
Yes, and we can offer our knowledge and techniques and our tools, because what we really offering are the principles of healing, right? So stepping up as teachers, also in your communities, organizations, frontliners, there's a lot of Shiatsu therapists doing incredible work, knocking on doors with organizations, hospitals, and as we know, it helps with everything, you know, working with kids to seniors to whatever ailment or disorder or disease it is. So really stepping up and presenting ourselves to our communities. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
showing up, stepping up to do what we need to do, but also, you know, we talked earlier about, you know, my mantra about the richness in diversity. So there's a richness in the diversity of Shiatsu styles that we have, but also who we work with, who's attracted to Shiatsu, who do we make it available to? You know, are we making Shiatsu accessible to everybody who would benefit from it? And not everyone's going to resonate with it. You know, I went seeking for something and I found Shiatsu, you know, and given my background, you know, India background, I didn't go towards Ayurveda, although I was doing yoga for a long time since my teens. It was part of my route, but yoga brought me to Shiatsu. And I kind of think, you know, people who are drawn to Shiatsu at some level, I think we know that there's something really quite profound happening here that's beyond massage, beyond just the touch. Yeah.
Yeah, like some of our patients, you know, one of them was saying yesterday, you know, I don't usually come here just to get my shoulders rubbed, right? Because that's right. There's much more here, right? I said, that's right. Yeah, there's much more to Shiatsu for sure. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Kindy, for sharing your wisdom and experience and your energy with us today. It was beautiful, just like you are. Yeah.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for making it such fun. I've really enjoyed being here and for making it so easy to me, and all these beautiful faces. Thanks for showing up.
No problem. Well, thank you everyone there, and have a great weekend. And just show up. Show up for yourself in the community. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.